You're now listening to the Adiel Gorel Show. Each episode I'll bring you the latest news from my discussions with top health and wellness experts so that you can bring yourself into better health. Today on the Adiel Gorel Show. So if we are just walking, talking waves, it stands to reason that waves and sound can heal us.
Absolutely. I like to say this is science. We live in a vibrational universe, in a vibrational field. The word quantum means to quantify those vibrations, right? And every aspect of us is vibrational. And I like to say that consciousness itself is our relationship to vibration, right? So, and if you look at the research, you'll find all kinds of vibrational terms like oscillating neural networks and things like that, or vibrating microtubule passages. In other words, they're constantly using vibrational terms to quantify and understand us better. So I like to say vibration is the medicine of the future. Really, it's here now, but it's going to continue to get more and more profound.
I do have to say that I practice meditation. I have a meditation routine, and it's a very well-known phenomenon that when two people meditate in the same room, it's not the same as one person or three or four.
That's
now,
right.
Some people would be cynical and say, oh, it's because the presence of the other reminds you to go back to center. However, I actually was fortunate enough to meditate with 4,000 people in a big dome. And I can tell you that it's far more than just that. So there's constructive interference, obviously.
Yes, absolutely. It works the other way around too. If you're with somebody like this,
Yes.
If you're not centered, if you don't know, it's like in a choir. If you don't know the right tone, you tend to go to the other, and you get pulled in. But again, the more people and by the way, congratulations on meditating, because that's my main message to everybody. The research on it is just amazing. And in this time of COVID, not to meditate it's crazy not to do that. The form could be whatever you want, but you have to meditate. You have to come to this place where you're still inside, and you can you can tune yourself. Meditation's a form of tuning yourself. But what you do for yourself biochemically is just, you couldn't ever get it in a pill, never.
So, I was really kind of taken by what you said in the chapter about chewing. For me, that was novel. I was, whoa, it completely resonated with it. So that we don't chew the way we used to chew. You went there and stepped inside of skull dust under the ground. I loved all of that. So do you still, you said you even used a device and you saw the result, but do you chew gum more, sugarless kind and tough gum, you even say which gum, do you do it, quite a bit now?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why so many of us have breathing problems is because humans as a species, our mouths have grown too small. And if you don't believe me, just look at ancient skulls. You're going to see these huge jaws, forward growing faces, perfectly straight teeth. So the researchers that I was working with, they said they had never seen a hunter-gatherer with crooked teeth, ever. Thousands of skulls. Look around today, see how many people have crooked teeth. I'm a great example at crooked teeth, extractions, braces, all that garbage. So many of these problems came about because as a species, we stopped chewing a few hundred years ago. Think about even the food you've eaten today, avocados, pancakes, yogurt, smoothies, all this stuff is soft. So our ancestors chewed for about 4 hours a day. It's how they were able to develop these very powerful skulls, straight teeth. So having a mouth that's too small for its face means you also have a smaller airway, which makes it harder to breathe, which is one of the reasons so many of us have so many chronic breathing problems. So chewing is especially important in infancy, and I associate breastfeeding with chewing. That is a form of chewing stress. when you're a young kid, eating real foods. In adulthood, when you're middle-aged like me, it's harder because everything's already set, but you can still make some real progress. Sorry. So I was told, I was warned by a dentist, you can't put out this advice carte blanche because some people have TMJ problems. And if they just go into chewing 3 hours a day, they're going to cause more problems. So if you don't have TMJ problems and the rest of your structure here is good, chewing has massive benefits, not only to help tone your airway, to make it easier to breathe. It increases, just talking to a researcher yesterday, increases blood flow, puts you in a relaxed state. You can only digest when you're salivating. You only salivate when you're relaxed. So there's so many benefits to it, and so few of us chew anymore. So to answer your question specifically, yes, I chew this crazy, the hardest gum I could find, this Turkish gum, sugar-free. It tastes like shoe leather, but man, does it give you a workout. And I don't think it's a coincidence that stuff's been sold out on Amazon the last couple months, and so many people are riding me chewing.
Let's still, attack it head on for the sake of simplicity. And I will ask you straight on, what is dry needling?
That's an excellent question. Dry needling is a specialized treatment of the soft tissues of the body. By soft tissues, I mean muscle, nerve, tendon. Tendon is, not everyone knows what a tendon is, but a tendon attaches muscle to bone. We can also treat ligaments, and ligaments attach bone to bone. And a lesser known soft tissue material called fascia. Some people know this term, but it's not as well known amongst, generally amongst the population. Now, a couple of things. Nerves travel through these tissues to their various destinations. That is, they start in the spine, in the spinal cord, they emanate from the spine and then disperse throughout the body. But they're not traveling through conduits or tunnels. They're actually tunneling through the tissue. Okay, so that means that they are subject to the forces of the tissue around it. So if tissue is injured around nerves, it can then compress nerves. And therefore, many conditions that people think are coming from, let's say, their back, could actually be in their glute or in their thigh or in their calf, being entrapped. So these are called peripheral nerve entrapments. Now, the soft tissues of the body do not include organs like the brain or the liver. We're talking about muscle. Now, 30 to 40% of our body mass, that is our total body, is muscle. But the joints, which are often thought to cause pain, comprise only 15 to 17% of the total body mass. Now, what does this mean? The question is, who controls who, or what influences what? So the greater amount of body mass of the muscle actually has a greater influence on the joints themselves. Now, it's also true that much of the pain that people experience is actually coming from the soft tissues, because the soft tissues are layered throughout the body and they're communicating with each other. So now, why is that confusing? Because many people look at an x-ray or are shown an x-ray by their doctor or an MRI, and they see something like arthritis, or they see a disc herniation, for example, and they conclude that that is causing their pain. But we know from experience that the correlation, that is the matching of that, is not really good. So then what is causing the pain? So we treat the soft tissues to affect what's happening there, and the needle itself is causing that to happen.
Okay, so that's quite interesting. And of course, when you hear about needles being used mechanically and creating an effect, you clearly think about acupuncture. So how different are, acupuncture and dry needling?
Yes. Acupuncture and dry needling have two things in common. Both professions want to help people, and the needle is the same. It is the same monofilament needle. However, acupuncture follows Asian medicine theory. That is, that theory tells them where to place needles and how and why to place needles in those locations. And that follows a completely different paradigm than what we do here in Western medicine. They're following energetic patterns, okay, and other factors which drive their decision as to what they're going to do. However, Western trained doctors are following the tissue itself. The patient says, I have a pain here, and we look at the tissue at that location. We base our evaluations on neurology and anatomy and biomechanics. So all of the things that we are trained in our education based on a Western model of treatment and diagnosis.
So if we talk to a person who is viewing this super important interview right now, and that person, let's assume, is reasonably healthy, reasonably okay, the very reason that person watches this is because they care about their health. They want to learn more. So let's assume they're fairly well maintained. They're okay. Maybe they're aging. What, I know you have a lot of stuff to say about this, because I know you have a whole book about food and how we should eat, but in a short way, what can this person who is viewing now do to make it so their body is more adept at making nitric oxide?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and really what I try to communicate all the time, because if you do everything you're supposed to do, again, your body heals itself. So there's two considerations. Number one, you have to stop doing the things that are disrupting nitric oxide production. And that includes using an antiseptic mouthwash. Here in the US, 200 million Americans wake up every morning and use an antiseptic mouthwash. The clinical evidence is very clear. It causes an increase in blood pressure. And in fact, you actually lose the protective effects of exercise. So 2 out of 3 Americans are using a mouthwash. 2 out of 3 Americans have an unsafe elevation in blood pressure. That is not coincidental. So number one, if you're using a mouthwash, you absolutely have to stop if you're concerned about your health. Number two are antacids. When you take antacids and inhibit stomach acid production, it inhibits nitric oxide production. Again, another 200 million Americans are on a so-called proton pump inhibitor for gastric reflux disease. And that's not even counting the number that are purchased over the counter. So you have to stop doing those things. Again, you're disrupting the normal metabolic processes in the body. So that's number one. And then number two, do the things that have been clinically proven to activate and restore nitric oxide production. So eat more green leafy vegetables that are enriched in inorganic nitrogen. Get moderate physical exercise that turns on and activates nitric oxide production. Get out in the sun. Infrared and both UV light can activate and release nitric oxide. I'm a big fan of infrared saunas, especially in the northern hemisphere where you've got 6 months of winter in some cases and very little sunlight. So you still have to activate these sources of near infrared and far infrared that can cleave nitric oxide and re-release it and get the benefits of it. So these are very simple, common sense, inexpensive approaches. In fact, it's actually cost savings if you're not using mouthwash and not buying antacids. Another thing is, fluoride-free toothpaste. Fluoride is an antiseptic. It's also a neurotoxin. So I recommend people, get rid of fluoride toothpaste because it disrupts the oral microbiome, kills the bad bacteria, but it also kills the good bacteria.
Let's start at the very beginning. What is Qigong?
That's a very good question. And it's a very broad answer because Qigong is a very broad category of what is done in the world under the heading of Qigong. It's kind of like if you know or practice yoga, there's so many different kinds of yoga. We don't have to go into how many types of yoga there are, but there's hundreds of different forms and Qigongs that don't have any forms, that are more meditation, etc. But in any case, Qi is energy, or very loosely, the energy that's in us, in the environment, in the rocks, the planet, the stars. The Chinese philosophers believe that everything has energy. Of course, Einstein proved that also. The amount of physicalness inside my body wouldn't fill a teaspoon. Everything else is energy. So we can get over the idea of like, ooh, this is all supernatural. No, we're made of energy. The world's made of energy, right? So Gong means practice. So Gong Fu is a type of Gong that's a fighting form, but also many other things.
So Gong is a practice that you do over time that creates benefit in your life. So we have a Qi practice created for benefit in your life. So that's Qigong. So we have a 64 movement set. It's not common to have a 64 movement set, but that just happens to be what our Qigong is.
That's really a great way to look at it. I appreciate this. So basically, it's the practice of energy. And I should really add, again, I just learned how to do the form. I'm very green, but I understand for the busy people, because everyone's busy these days, that once you have it, it's a practice that could take as little as 15 minutes a day. Am I right?
Oh yeah. Well, once you become, quote, a master or whatever, you've done your 10,000 hours or whatever, you can access the Qi around you in a second, right? You don't even have to do the form per se. I don't know how long Master Yang Meijun did the form. She did the form since she was 13 years old until she was 107 years old. The woman was embodied energy. So in any case, you learn how to do energy work in the form. And 15 minutes, if you're just practicing your form, 15 minutes is enough. But remember, it's not about time, it's about quality.
No, but that's good for our viewers and listeners, because people are saying, oh my God, another 64 moves. How long is it? Okay, so it's good to know that for us busy Westerners, this is, well, I actually think it's almost miraculous, because not only does it take roughly, again, 15 minutes of our time, but it's easy enough to be done by almost everyone. And you could do it when you're older as well. Thank you for joining me today. For more videos, be sure to follow me on Facebook. Got a question? I love questions. Leave it in the comment right below.